I'm Gloria. Sitting across from my parents and younger sister in the restaurant, I can't believe the nerve of them to reach out for help after what they did to me. My children, now 7, are sitting by my side, looking healthy and happy despite the early hardships in their lives. My mother starts, "We need help," without any preamble. I can't help but let out a bitter response, "Interesting. I needed help once, too. Remember?" My father tries to make an excuse, "That was different." I cut him off, "You're right. I was a young widow with 2 traumatized toddlers who just buried their father. You're just old and poor. Completely different." My mother's voice trembles as she asks, "Where are your parents?" I correct her, "Were. You were my parents until you watched your grandchildren, my late husband's children, crying in the rain and told us widow problems weren't your problems." Just then, my sister, Stella, arrives late. All the confidence and expensive designer clothes are gone. She looks desperate as she slides into the booth. "Gloria, please," she begins. I interrupt her sweetly, "Your office space back?" "Sorry, someone else lives there now. A widow with 3 kids. I bought the house when Mom and Dad defaulted on the mortgage." Their faces turn white as a sheet. They had been receiving eviction notices from a property management company, completely unaware that it was me behind it all. "You bought our house?" My father whispers in shock. "My house now. And yes, I'm evicting you." "Turns out widow problems can become your problems after all," I say firmly. My mother asks in a small voice, "Where will we go?" I pull out a brochure and slide it across the table. Golden Years Assisted Living. It's adequate. Not luxury, but you'll have a roof. I've paid for 6 months. Stella gasps, 6 months? Then what? I reply, then you figure it out. You're adults. Learn independence. I stand up to leave but turn back. Oh, and that rainy night when you changed the locks, my children still have nightmares. They thought they were being punished for crying at their daddy's funeral. Sam still asks if Grandma and Grandpa hate him because Daddy died. My mother starts to cry, and my father reaches out for my hand, but I pull away. "I would have shared everything with you," I say quietly. The success, the money, the joy of watching my husband's dream help thousands of families. All you had to do was open the door. Instead, you taught me that family means nothing if they'll abandon you at your lowest moment. As I drive home with my kids, I can't help but let my mind wander back to that fateful day. It had been pouring rain since the morning we buried my husband, Ethan. He was a brilliant tech developer, but cancer took him away from us in just 6 months, leaving me a widow at a young age. Our twins, Sam and Lily, were only 4 years old. They were too young to understand death, sobbing at their daddy's graveside, wondering why he wasn't coming home from the hospital this time. 3 hours after watching Ethan's casket disappear into the ground, I found myself standing on my parents' doorstep with my shivering children. I fumbled for the keys, but they didn't work. The lock had been changed, and the shiny brass lock seemed to mock me in the porch light. "Mom," I called out, seeing movement through the frosted glass. "The key won't work." The door opened just a crack, chained with something I'd never seen before. My mother's perfectly made-up face appeared in the gap, showing no sign of grief for her son-in-law. "Stella needs your room for her home office," she said matter-of-factly. "She's starting her new business." I stared at her in disbelief, the rain dripping from my black funeral dress. "What? You heard me. We discussed this," I said desperately. "We discussed nothing," she retorted. I could feel my voice cracking as I said, "I buried my husband today." Behind me, Lily started crying again, and Sam clung tightly to my leg. My father then appeared behind my mother, his face as cold as ice. "Widow problems aren't our problems, Gloria. You figure it out," he said harshly, and then slammed the door shut. My children and I were left outside in the rain, wet and shivering. "Mommy, I'm cold," Lily whimpered. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands, only to find it dead. Of course, I'd forgotten to charge it in the chaos of the funeral preparations. I picked up Sam and grabbed Lily's hand, then stumbled back to my car. At least it was dry inside. The three of us huddled in the back seat, my children curling against me like wet puppies, their little bodies shaking from both cold and grief. Through the car window, I saw Stella's Mercedes pull into the driveway. My younger sister, the one who had always been the golden child in the family, never having to face any real struggles. She got out of the car, carrying shopping bags from high-end boutiques, and practically skipped to the door despite the rain. My mom opened the door wide for her, no questions asked. They hugged and laughed. Stella then turned and saw us in the car. For a brief moment, our eyes met, but then she just shrugged and walked inside. I was at a complete loss. There was only one place I could think of to go, the 24-hour diner where Ethan and I had our first date. When we entered, the kind waitress, Rose, immediately noticed our funeral clothes. Without a word, she ushered us to a corner booth and brought hot chocolate for the kids and coffee for me. "Honey, what happened?" she asked gently. I whispered, "We buried their father today. And my parents changed the locks. They said my sister needs my room for an office." Rose's face changed expressions several times before she became furious. "Those heartless people," she muttered under her breath, then louder, "You stay right here. Don't you move." She came back with the manager, Jake, who I later learned had also lost his partner at a young age. Within an hour, they and the other night shift staff, all people who knew what it was like to struggle and experience loss, pooled their money and paid for a motel room for us for the week. Rose also gave me $60 from her tips. "For food," she said firmly, refusing my protests. That night, as my children finally fell asleep in the lumpy motel bed, I sat by the window and made a promise to Ethan's memory. I decided that I would rise above this situation. And when I did, I would show my parents the consequences of their actions. The next morning, I set out on a mission. The first stop was Ethan's life insurance company. He had been extremely meticulous with paperwork, even when cancer was taking over his body. The insurance policy was worth more than I'd initially thought. He had increased the coverage after his diagnosis, doing everything he could to secure our future. My second stop was a lawyer's office. I learned that illegally evicting someone, especially someone with minor children on the day of a funeral, was a criminal offense. After hearing my story, the lawyer agreed to take my case on a contingency basis. Then, with a police escort, I went back to my childhood home. When my mother saw the police officers, her shocked expression was almost worth all that I had been through. "What is this?" she stammered. "Illegal eviction, ma'am," the officer said calmly. "Your daughter has established residency here. You can't just change the locks, especially when there are minor children involved." While my parents watched with anger, I retrieved our belongings. Stella stood in the doorway of what used to be my room, now painted a different color and filled with her office furniture. "This is ridiculous," she said. "I have clients coming." I replied, "Should have thought of that before you stole a widow's room," as I grabbed my children's toys, Ethan's pictures, and our clothes. My mother hissed, "You're being dramatic. We did you a favor. You need to learn independence." I stopped and really looked at her. I just watched my husband die slowly for 6 months. I held him as he took his last breath. I planned his funeral alone while taking care of 2 grieving toddlers. And you think I need to learn independence? The silence in the room was deafening. We left, never looking back. But I knew I wasn't done. My family didn't know that in Ethan's final weeks, when he could still type, he had been working on a project for me. It was a child care app called FamilySafe that connected single parents with verified and affordable babysitters in real time. He had written the code, set up the framework, and even started the patent process. "Finish it," he had whispered on one of his last nights. "It's your empire. Build it. Living in that motel and then a small apartment, I dedicated myself to completing Ethan's vision. I used part of the life insurance money to hire developers to polish the code. During the day, I pitched the app to investors, and at night, I held my crying children in my arms. I was driven by grief, anger, and the memory of standing in the rain while my parents chose Stella's convenience over their grandchildren's well-being. 8 months after Ethan's death, FamilySafe was launched. It was an instant success. There were thousands of single parents like me who were struggling to work while taking care of their children alone. Our app filled a gap that no one else had noticed. In the first year, we had 50,000 users. The second year saw national expansion, and by the third year, I was turning down acquisition offers. Meanwhile, Stella's business failed within 6 months. Word had spread about how she had bragged about stealing a widow's room, and people didn't want to work with her. And here we are now, 3 years after that rainy night. My parents, in their 70s, are in need of help, and Stella is broke and desperate. They underestimated me, thinking that widow problems weren't their concern. But my problems made me stronger, and now, they are facing the consequences of their own actions. Back at our new house, a beautiful colonial in a nice neighborhood, my children's rooms are filled with pictures of Ethan, toys, and the sense of security that they'll never be locked out again. That night, Lily asks me, "Why don't we see Grandma and Grandpa anymore?" I pull her close and say, "Because sometimes, sweetheart, people show you who they really are when you need them most." And we learned that Grandma and Grandpa only love people who don't have problems. Sam says wisely, "But everyone has problems." "Exactly, baby," I reply. 2 months later, I hear from extended family that my parents and Stella are living in the assisted living facility. Stella is working a minimum wage job at a call center, and my parents spend their days complaining about ungrateful children. The other residents avoid them. Meanwhile, FamilySafe has just passed 2 million users. Ethan's legacy lives on, helping countless families find affordable and reliable childcare during their toughest times. The rain still falls when I visit Ethan's grave with the kids, but now we have umbrellas, warm coats, and the certainty that we'll always have a home. It's not because of the family that betrayed us, but because of the family we've chosen, the kind waitress, the generous manager, and Ethan's final gift of code. I've shown my parents more mercy than they showed me, giving them 6 months of shelter, 6 months more than they gave me and my children on that terrible day. And I've come to realize that true family isn't always about blood, it's about the people who stand by you when you need them most.